Good morning. So protests in various state parks across the state over the Florida Department of Environmental Protection's plan to put things like pickleball, golf courses, and hotels on public parks. The plan has been put out there as a way to get people involved in the parks. Mm-hmm. They claim that in some cases this will encourage the use of the parks, but most people don't seem to agree with that. They think it's junking the places up. And they had these public hearings set up for Tuesday, sort of in small venues around the state, and all at the same time, essentially one for each park around the state, all at 3 o'clock, just 1 hour. And that was all they were going to take as far as input on this issue. It's almost like they were trying to sneak this by and maybe get it passed without anybody noticing. Well, it's totally blown up in their face. The state is now having to move these hearings to next week to much larger venues where it's very likely a lot of people are going to show up and voice opposition. And really, it's one of the biggest scandals that the DeSantis administration's had to deal with since he came into office. And what's different about it is he's getting blowback really for the first time from Republicans in his own party. They are not coming to his defense. No. In fact, they're going on the attack saying that this was just a bad idea all the way across the board.
I haven't seen anything quite like this during DeSantis' time in office, where you've got the Senate president, you've got Congressman Matt Gaetz, you've got Rick Scott. I mean, the list goes on and on. Again, like you said, from the Republican side of the aisle, that's what makes this notable. There's been bipartisan pushback to this, but saying this is just a bad idea. And the way that they framed the change in venues, they said, because of so much interest in all of this.
Right, like everybody is just clamoring for a pickleball court in a state park.
Yeah, it's not really about interest. It's pushback. It's significant pushback to this idea. And I think a lot of it seems to have to do with, again, I'm not a person who goes to state parks. I'm not really an outdoorsy type, so I don't have a dog in this fight. I don't care what they do with the state parks. But people who go there, they like the peace and tranquility and all of that. Of course they do.
They like to go for a hike in nature and silence. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to hear a pickleball court. Like, there's been complaints about how loud they are. Why would you want to put that in a place where it's supposed to be nice and quiet?
Yeah, Honeymoon Island. I mean, just change the name to Pickleball Island.
Yeah. And then the golf courses, I think there's this thought, and I said this when this story first broke, like, don't we have enough golf courses around the state? Do we need them on state parks?
And golf courses have a huge impact on the environment. So putting them in a state park, which is supposed to preserve land, highly controversial. And the story continues to develop. The group that had been pushing for golf courses, 3 of them, in fact, on the Jonathan Dickinson State Park in Martin County, was tied to Jack Nicklaus and his people. To design and put forth these new golf courses. They've now withdrawn that idea because of all this public blowback.
Yeah, and wasn't it a charitable organization, which is a really, really great one? Folds of Honor was somehow involved in the initial idea to put these golf courses on state parks. Folds of Honor does tremendous work. I've interviewed them a number of times. I don't know how exactly they got wrapped up in all of this, but I got to tell you, I don't see this happening now. I mean, there's just been too much pushback from, again, all angles, all sides. I don't see this moving forward.
Yeah, I don't know if DeSantis helped himself. He put out a spokesman on Friday who said something like, well, Teddy Roosevelt, supported, parks and he was all about, making them accessible to people. But I don't think Teddy Roosevelt supported pickleball and golf courses in the national parks.
Building them, like turning them into like industrial.
Yeah, it's one thing to create the park and to create them as places where people can go visit as, national monuments. It's another thing to develop them and commercialize them.
But put a hotel on there, it just doesn't make sense.
I do think if there is a reason behind this, a good reason, then DeSantis himself is going to have to come out and make the case. And I'd be open to hearing what he has to say about this. But again, the Senate president, when you've got Kathleen Passidomo come right out, like right away and say, no, I don't think so. And then just one after another. We have not seen Republicans in the state speak out openly against something that DeSantis has proposed like this at any point during his time in office. So this is definitely new territory for the governor, and we'll see where it goes.
So both the Trump and Harris campaigns are awaiting the results of new polling now that a candidate that could make a difference in close states is no longer in the race. Independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced in Phoenix on Friday he's suspending his campaign and endorsing Trump. Now, his name will remain on the ballot in many states, even though he's no longer in the race. And it's not entirely clear exactly how this is going to help or hurt the Harris and Trump campaigns.
He made it so confusing by not just getting out of the race. He's like, I'm suspending my campaign, but we're not getting out of the race. And if you're in certain states, you could vote for us. You should vote for us. If you're in other states, then don't. And they're trying to get his name off the ballot. Like, I don't know. It seemed very...
Yeah, why not just drop out?
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason for that. You say you're suspending your campaign so you can keep all the money you've raised because maybe you come back in at a later time, or maybe you want to save that money for a future campaign. If you drop out, then I think, you have to talk to the election lawyers.
Yeah.
But that suggests that you need to end the campaign and then the money needs to go back to where it came from.
I think it looked like when you dive really deep into the data, his vote probably splits 45-25 Trump. Trump's definitely going to get a little bit more of a benefit out of this than Harris will, which is why he's getting out of the race, too. I mean, he was very open about it to help Trump in those swing states. I just don't know how much of a difference it's going to end up making because he's lost so much support. When he was polling at 20%, well, then it's a much bigger deal if he's out of the race. When you're polling at 4 or 5, some cases, depending on the state, even lower. It
could make a difference in a swing state.
That's the key, and that's what we just don't know. It could make a bit of a difference in some really tight swing states. So we'll see. I think you are giving the Harris campaign a new line of attack, which is essentially to come back with this. We told you they're weird.
They're weird and they're together.
Now they've got the guy with the dead worm in his brain and, the dead bears in Central Park and all of that kind of stuff. So I don't know how much of it's going to have an impact. I don't know how much of an impact it's going to have.
I've talked to a couple of RFK supporters, and granted, not many because there just aren't very many. And he told me that he was a lifelong Republican, but he just didn't like Trump. And he definitely didn't like Biden, sort of a double hater. And he just is not clear what he's going to do.
Yeah, some of them may not vote at all.
Yeah, they may not vote at all now. And when you think about the impact of that could have a big impact on Senate races. Like here in Florida, you got those amendments.
Yep.
Just because there isn't someone at the top of the ticket is not a reason to not show up at all.
Yeah.
You may not like either one. But I think what the campaigns want to do is somehow convince those voters to come into their camp.
Right. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. It'll probably be like a week and a half or so before we have a good handle on it in terms of the latest polling. Chris Strankman with today's top stories. Chris, thanks so much.
Thank you.